Hey yo, what's up? You gotta stop and listen. It's time to open your eyes.
Hello brother, 기타를 메탈을 쿨라 울린 살로 brother, 규슈複数 메탈을 쿨라 機械になって得たぜ複数の機械無限に増殖絶望を感じたあのショック打ちたちから捕まえた悟空とベジータ吸われた悟空とベジータ全力出した奴はヒーローかます瞬間移動奴は非常ボディは頑丈無限に再生絶望の戦場無限に増殖見せろ根性クーラーブリーザのブラザードカンバトルにメタルクーラー来たるぶちかませ超快感ドラゴンボール Z ドッカンバトル全世界同時キャンペーン開催中
Hey guys, it's Mike here. Let's try this again. Hey guys, it's Mike here, and welcome to Laughingstock Media. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about something that I've been waiting to talk about for quite a while now, which is going to be Deadpool 3, and more specifically, the return of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. So, for a little bit of context, when it comes to Marvel characters, Marvel superheroes, and everything along those lines, for me, I would probably have to say that Wolverine is actually my favorite of all of them. Whether it be heroes or villains. Although, of course, you have characters like Thanos, you have characters like Magneto in terms of villains that are really great in Marvel in general. But when it comes to specifically Wolverine and, especially heroes, anti-heroes, whatever you want to refer to Wolverine as, for me, he would have to be my favorite, the number one in terms of all of that. And so seeing him return as, with Hugh Jackman, of course, also returning to this role for the first time since, I believe, Logan, which was kind of his send-off as a character. It's definitely interesting to see him finally coming back to that role, which he said that he was retired from, but let's be honest, I mean, how many times has he said that already? Oh, I'm definitely going to quit. I hate playing Wolverine. I work out all the time. I eat nothing but lean chicken breasts all the time, which is like, well, yeah, welcome to keto. And so essentially he's saying that he, for a long time, wasn't going to be returning, that, he was done with Logan, but I'll be honest here. For someone whose favorite Marvel hero, let's say, is Wolverine, for someone who loves the X-Men, has their entire life, I mean, after all, I am wearing a, X-Men, the animated series, 90s inspired shirt, so as you could tell, I'm a huge Wolverine and X-Men fan. I've seen all of the versions of the X-Men, I've read the comics, so I do love the X-Men, and I've been waiting ever since they bought Fox, Disney did, to finally get that going on, the MCU. And we did get a little brief glimpse of that when it came to, Professor Xavier appearing in Doctor Strange 2. Spoilers, by the way. I guess that's a spoiler at this point, even though everyone on the planet already knows about it, and it's been memed like crazy with what Wanda does to him and everyone else in that movie. So, what mouth? That was really smart, Mr. Fantastic. Maybe you shouldn't have, I don't know, told Wanda the one strength and weakness of the person that you were proclaiming was, really powerful in Black Bolt. It was also pretty weird that they used the same actor from the Inhumans, but I guess they had to pay that series off somehow because that kind of was a huge bomb. But overall, when it comes to that, I've been waiting for the X-Men to finally join the MCU, and, Deadpool is joining the MCU as well. But really, when you think about it, I don't really know whether or not this is the ideal place for Wolverine to debut. I mean, of course, it's a big fourth wall break. We all know that in the previous movies that they keep making jokes about how Deadpool, and specifically Ryan Reynolds, really wants to have Wolverine played by Hugh Jackman in the movie. And I don't recall specifically them saying in the trailer, that little teaser that they put out there, that Wolverine would be in it, just that Hugh Jackman was going to be in it. So, with that being said, for all we know, we're getting kind of a bait and switch, and it's Hugh Jackman, and they're just going to be playing or doing a ton of different references to Logan and Wolverine, but it isn't going to be a true Wolverine in the sense that what we've gotten before. But I feel like even for Marvel, with some of their subversions like the Mandarin and Ralph Boner as Quicksilver, they probably wouldn't do that. That would just alienate the fans even more than they've already done thus far with a lot of what they've done in the past few years. So I feel like that's going to be a no go, and we're probably going to get the real Wolverine. And with that being said, getting back to the last appearance of Wolverine, specifically in the Fox owned X Men at the time, I would have to say that while Logan is universally considered by most people, I would say, uh, so it wouldn't be universal if it was just by most, but whatever. The point is that most people would say that Logan was a great movie and a great send off to Wolverine and, Hugh Jackman's version of him. But I'm going to be honest, I don't really agree with that statement. I think that Logan is a really good movie, but there are a lot of issues with it that I even had when I first saw it. Specifically with the plot, how they deal with the X Men, and kind of really the send off aspect of it. Because when you really think about it, look at what happened in the previous movie, or maybe two movies before that, depending upon how you want to interpret this weird canon timeline. Look at Days of Future Past. That for me is the perfect send off for Wolverine, for the X Men. That should have been the end of Fox's X Men. It was perfect in a sense. And really for me, overall, I think it's maybe a 10 out of 10 movie. It has drama, it has the highest stakes, it has great performances by Wolverine's, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, for example, by the younger cast from First Class and the original older cast from the original X-Men movies. You had the amazing performances of Patrick Stewart, James McAvoy as Professor Xavier, Ian McKellen, and Michael Fassbender as Magneto, and then all of the other characters in there. Of course, that was back when Jennifer Lawrence was still trying to play Mystique, and she didn't have the horrible makeup that she would have in, like, the final movie, Dark Phoenix. And the less that we say about that abomination, the better. I mean, talking about Wolverine, I actually enjoyed the movie that apparently Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman hate more, which is X-Men Origins Wolverine, than more than Dark Phoenix. I'd much rather watch that for the sheer just schlock value, I guess you could say, than I would ever watch Dark Phoenix again. And I feel like I might have watched Dark Phoenix more than once. It's such a movie that I just want to blink out of my memory, like as if I had Professor Xavier on speed dial. And I feel like most people would do that too for those movies, especially also New Mutants. That movie is terrible. But compare the send off that we got in Days of Future Past compared to what we would get in Logan. In Days of Future Past, Wolverine goes back in time and he saves all of the X-Men. He saves them from a horrible fate, and he really saves the entire world from this basically Terminator-esque storyline. Although the original Days of Future Past comic did heavily inspire James Cameron with the creation of Terminator, and of course all of the other stories that were inspired by Terminator from that point on, including Dragon Ball, especially with the Red Ribbon Army and the Cell Saga. So when you think about that, in Logan, what do we get to see? Well, all the X-Men are killed off screen for the most part because Professor Xavier starts to have essentially aneurysms and is wiping out his own team by accident completely. And it's just such an unsatisfying, unenjoyable way that they kind of erase the X-Men in that storyline. That is the way that Wolverine's story ends. All of his friends and family, everyone he worked so hard for, just is murdered off screen. Well, not really murdered, but killed off screen in an instant because, Professor Xavier had like a embolism or something, like that's really just a massive disappointment. It was for me the first time I saw the movie, and it has been ever since. And then the other things that they do in the movie, for instance, like, everything that happens with the end of Mutations, where it's like, by the way, we put a bunch of like special chemicals in the cereal and all the other stuff that you eat to make it where mutations are suppressed, and they're not really going to be much of a thing moving forward. And then we just kind of have like, it's kind of like the old Western story. Hugh Jackman kind of, goes on his big escort quest with X-23 and the other younger mutants and guides him across the border to the promised land, and that's the end of his story where, he dies and holding his heart in his hands, like they referenced in Wolverine, just called The Wolverine, I think, where he goes to Japan. And this time they repurposed that story to be more about X-23 and, his love in his hands, his daughter, essentially, his clone. So that really, for me, it was just a really disappointing way to send off his character. And even though it's like you could view it as maybe a great standalone movie, aside from those things I mentioned, that never sat very well with me in terms of that being the end of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, especially since in the past he had expressed interest in being in the MCU and being in the Avengers films. So the fact that now it seems like, in a sense, they are going to try and continue that onward through Hugh Jackman now returning as Wolverine, and of course, being in Deadpool, who is now going into the MCU, and Deadpool breaks the fourth wall. He basically is a reality warper at this point. He could time travel and make changes in different canon storylines and everything like that, they could easily kind of work it in. And especially since everything is shifting in that multiverse direction with the coming of Kang, especially in the new Ant-Man movie, Quantumania, and Loki, where they set that up, and a lot of everything else that they're doing, they could easily now bring the X-Men, really both versions, in if they want to. I'm hoping they won't just totally recast everyone, and the fact that Hugh Jackman's going to be in the movies now seems to indicate that they're not. But then again, we got Patrick Stewart's Professor X, we got Jim from The Office's Doctor Fantastic, and we got Black Bolt from the Inhumans and everything, and then they, obliterate all of them in an instant, basically. So, that's another thing, too, that they could basically bring all these characters in and then just unsatisfyingly eliminate them in an instant if they really want to. But what I'm really hoping, especially with regard to the X-Men, is that they're going to be setting up more of like kind of that super crossover versus battle, right? Where essentially, instead of what we had previously seen, where it's like, let's recast these characters again, I think most people would agree that they're kind of tired of these recastings and reboots and the same thing over and over and over again. So why not just bring the original actors back? Even though really Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, I feel like, have kind of aged out of these roles. They could still bring them back, and then they could bring in James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender. I'd love to see their versions interacting with the Avengers characters, And we really kind of need that star power now, especially because the fact that in Endgame we got rid of so many of the most important, iconic characters from the MCU. Like, for example, we got rid of Captain America, where, sure, they could probably bring back one of the Chris's, not Chris Hemsworth, not Chris Pine, Chris Pratt, not Chris Pratt, Chris Evans, I think. There's so many Chris's that are in these movies now that I always forget which one is which. But they could always bring back Chris Evans and have him as old Captain America. But, I don't think anyone really is that excited or clamoring to see Falcon. I mean, I literally forgot he's Captain America now because of the fact that his show was so underwhelming and mediocre. And, considering that Winter Soldier is literally my favorite MCU movie, that is a huge, tall task that they accomplished by making his show with the Winter Soldier and the really interesting kind of U.S. agent played by Russell Wyatt, or Wyatt Russell, what am I doing, the Japanese version of his name where you say the last name first, into a kind of an underwhelming show. That was something that I was a little disappointed with, but I've talked about that in Laughingstock Cinema in my video, which I probably won't put a card in the top right because, it is my current iteration of my channel, but you can always go over there and check it out, why The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was underwhelming. So yeah, in terms of that, we need that star power really because bring in Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy as Magneto and Professor Xavier reversed and flipped in that order, and bring in some of those old cast members that can give gravitas and star value to everything. Bring in Hugh Jackman, screw it. We don't need to bring in any of the other actors. You could say Hugh Jackman's from one universe, they're from the others, That's all you really need to do. No one's really going to care as long as you insert these characters in a way to where they feel like they're there with meaning and purpose and that they're actually going to play a real substantial role within the course of the story. And just seeing that, again, we missed out on so many opportunities because it would have been awesome to see Hugh Jackman interact with Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Hulk before he was, the Hulk we have now, the butchered version of the Hulk that we're seeing in She-Hulk right now, the one where they just turned him into an even weaker version of Professor Hulk that really just ultimately isn't anywhere near as enjoying or entertaining or compelling, despite the fact that he has the mind of Bruce Banner and the power of the Hulk, but it basically just feels like he's a diminished version of both of them combined, which, is a big disappointment with what they've done with the Hulk. And who wouldn't have loved to see Savage Hulk versus Wolverine? Who wouldn't have wanted to see that iconic scene of Hulk ripping Wolverine in half, even tearing through his adamantium, and, what we end up seeing in some of those comics. That's one of the coolest rivalries we've seen in comics thus far. And in Marvel specifically, and even like animated versions, they've done Hulk versus Wolverine before, but as far as it is right now, that isn't something that they really seem to be setting up unless maybe She-Hulk or some movie coming up just undoes Professor Hulk and, brings back the real Hulk that people actually enjoy. But I'm not too sure that's necessarily going to happen. And yeah, as Blue X in the chat just said, he wished that we got Edward Norton to come back as the Hulk, and I wouldn't mind that either, to be honest. Like, I talked with Josh from Dragon Ball Nation in my previous stream last week, which is the Laughingstock Nation Episode 4, A New Hope, which barely had anything to do with Star Wars. And, I talked about how I wouldn't really care that much if he transformed out of the Hulk back into, like, Edward Norton was like, oh yeah, sometimes when I go from the Hulk back into who I am now, it changes my appearance as Bruce Banner. Whatever, that's fine. They could even just make a meta joke, winking at the audience, like, oh, so you're back to being, the way that you used to look, Bruce. Oh yeah, I don't know why I changed my appearance. And he just like looks at the camera. That'd be a little bit too overdone. But maybe they can get away with it in Deadpool, which is another thing. Throw in those meta fourth wall breaking changes in Deadpool, and people aren't really gonna mind because that's kind of like a part of the thing. And moving forward, people might mind because the people who don't go to see Deadpool, there's always those people in the audience in the MCU movies who don't watch tons of the other ones, and they come in. It's like, I don't like this movie because I was confused and I had to watch all the other ones. Yeah. That's literally how the franchise is designed, people. That's how comic books are designed. They have tie-ins and they have event stories. That's literally the entire game plan. The MCU just took that and applied it to movies in a mostly successful way. I would say in the past, like so many years, though, that sometimes that cinematic universe has really actually hurt the MCU movies, like the individual standalone ones, because too much of them focus on like interconnecting to the MCU and like what's going to happen next with these other characters that are not really related to this single standalone story we're watching. And so as a result, they don't have as much flexibility in that sense. They don't really have as much ability to do whatever they really want. And we don't really get many of those what if scenarios in movies either that we really should. They could have easily made like a Wolverine versus Hulk movie years ago, and to get around the standalone Hulk thing, they could have said Wolverine. Hulk emerges. They could have just had it be a Wolverine movie and then thrown Hulk in the title so that we know it's Hulk versus Wolverine. But they could have done so many what if scenarios with the MCU by now, but because they're so beholden to the cinematic universe that everything takes place within, they don't want to really do those true what ifs in that sense. I haven't really seen the what if animated series, so for all I know, they tried to do that, but from the impression I got, it was like these different what if scenarios are actually happening in different universes, and they're still a part of the MCU because, as we saw in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Peggy Carter shows up as Captain America like she was in the What If stories. So when you think about that, it is still a little bit difficult. And that's one of the things that DC has held a little bit of an advantage over Marvel in recent years because of that. Because DC isn't afraid to do Batman with Robert Pattinson. They're not afraid to do Joker and have them all be totally separate from one another and separate from the Snyderverse, which may or may not still exist. I don't know. But I would like to see more Ben Affleck Batman. Maybe I'm in the minority there. I don't really care. Because, I've always felt that Ben Affleck was a really good Batman, and coming from somebody whose favorite DC hero is Batman, I think maybe I have a little bit of insight into that, especially since I did just rewatch Batman the Animated Series, which is still a masterpiece, by the way, definitely worth watching. And, then I go and I see Ben Affleck, it's like, yeah, I actually do buy him as Bruce Wayne in Batman. It's just that we didn't get the same version of Batman, I guess you could say. We got the Snyder version of Batman, which is more like Dark Knight Returns Batman and further along in his story when he's like older than his parents ever were. I get the whole idea in what Snyder was going for, and I also really I don't know. I'm not going to get on down the rabbit hole of the Snyderverse and some of the negative reactions to some choices he's made compared to the MCU, because let's be honest, why are Batman and Superman killing everyone? I don't get this. Meanwhile, the MCU heroes murder people by the thousand, and it's like, it's okay. Captain America's a soldier. He can kill everyone he wants. It's totally good. Wanda can, kill people all she wants. It's totally fine. She can enslave a town, but she's still good. At least until Doctor Strange too. What is it? Like, the Avengers kill people constantly, and everyone's totally fine with it. Mostly, let's be honest, because a lot of these characters were never as iconic or known in the zeitgeist as Batman, Superman. I mean, Wonder Woman, I feel like, has always killed people, but the Flash, stuff like that. So when they start doing it, then it becomes more of an issue overall. Excuse me. Even though, let's be honest, in the original Superman 2, Superman still killed Zod, so it's I don't know, whatever. I'm not going to get on that whole tangent, even though I already did. That's another thing I like about Wolverine. Another thing that I love about the Punisher, too. They'll kill people. They don't care. They know, they'll see an enemy that is just beyond saving in any regard, that is killing people by the dozen, and Punisher will just come up and shoot him in the head. Wolverine will slice right through him with his adamantium claws. That's why it's so compelling in Daredevil Season 2, for instance. Maybe the height of the MCU thus far, by the way, Daredevil. I can't wait for Season 4. Hopefully they don't horribly ruin it, but we'll see. But either way, that was what was so compelling about Daredevil versus the Punisher, because of how interesting the comparison and contrasting of their different ideologies was. For instance, we see that Matt Murdock refuses to kill people. He's like Batman. He's up against that wall. He's given these ultimate choices, kind of like, kill this guy right here in front of me, or I'm going to kill him. The Punisher puts him in that situation, which is exactly like what we see in Batman Under the Red Hood, in which the Red Hood is holding Joker, hostage with a gun to his head. He throws a gun into Batman's hands and he's like, kill him or I'm going to. So, again, they put these characters in these really interesting moral dilemmas, and that is one of the things that could also be really interesting if, at least some of the characters in the MCU stuck to a no-kill policy rather than just killing every villain they come across, which, you know, has also always been kind of an issue with me in terms of not just Marvel movies, but most comic book movies in general. They kill the villain way too often. And what I mean by that is the fact that so often what we end up seeing is that these characters that show up in comics back to back over and over in so many iconic storylines over the course of decades are killed off prematurely, oftentimes in their debut role in the MCU or the DCEU, where it's like, here's Red Skull, and then let's be honest, he was killed off more or less in the original Captain America. He got teleported away, but they basically forgot about him until Infinity War when they decided to throw him in as an Easter egg, and he hasn't shown back up again. They kill off so many villains in their very first introduction. And so as a result, we don't get those epic team ups. That would have been so cool to see if they did it in Endgame like they did in the actual Infinity War comic, or Infinity Gauntlet comic, in which all the heroes and villains that were remaining after the snap teamed up to fight against Thanos. But there were so many of those iconic characters that either weren't introduced in the MCU at the time or were killed off because they were the villain, and so let's kill off the villain at the end of the movie, which was also kind of disappointing. So, that's something that I wish that they would stop doing so much of. I know that they have the multiverse, so they could just kill off everyone and bring them back immediately if they want to in another universe version, but it does feel kind of cheap and like a little bit of a cop out, or a little bit of you don't really get that kind of emotional investment. It's one of the reasons why oftentimes I feel like time travel stories are really hard to pull off. Or, when you really think about some of these time travel stories, you start to kind of realize how existentially horrifying some of it is, because the fact that, like, all these people that are around the character right now are just not the same person that they used to be anymore. It's like the End of the Future Trunks arc, for example, where, everyone is obliterated from existence. They don't even have souls anymore. They're gone forever. And then they're like, well, let's go back in time and like undo everything that just happened and create a new timeline with all these people from, a certain age of when they knew us and could hang out with us. And it's like, you do know that all those people are not the same people. They just look like them. They have the same genetic code and similar memories, but they're totally different people. You're just going to be a stranger in their lives because you're not the same person they knew. It's never going to be the same thing. And so, it's really the same thing in many ways with the multiverse. Sure, maybe we could get Tony Stark showing back up either as, Robert Downey Jr., which would be preferable for most people, or Tom Cruise, which has been suggested in the past. We could see an alternate version of young Captain America. We could see alternate versions of these characters, but they're still not the real ones that we spent all those movies, all those years in real time and in the storyline going through their journey simultaneously and being able to follow along with them and, growing to love them as characters and as, fictional people. And so that is always going to be an issue with the multiverse, with time variance, which they kind of got rid of those basically with the TVA and stuff until, the end of Loki season 1. We'll see what's going on with season 2, but it does make it harder to invest in a lot of the characters that they are focusing so much time and effort on recently with the MCU are like C, D, Z-list characters, let's be completely honest, that no one really cares that much about anyway. Like, out of hardcore comic book fans who have been reading comics for most of their lives, who's a more interesting lineup? Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, and Black Widow and Hawkeye, I guess. Or Captain Marvel, which, was originally Miss Marvel, Shang-Chi, Echo, She-Hulk, Falcon as Captain America, maybe the Winter Soldier, I guess, and some other people. I think the story is kind of obvious there in that case, even if I wasn't doing that for comedic effect. There's no real comparison. Nobody, like, even if those movies are entertaining, and they certainly could make these characters more interesting, because like, let's be honest, Iron Man was like a C-list character for a very long time. He got like a cartoon series, he did become a bigger character in the comics eventually, especially with Civil War, but he was never anywhere near as iconic as like Captain America or the Hulk or Spider-Man, especially. And most Marvel villain characters were never as iconic as the DC counterparts. Compare like Captain America and Iron Man and Thor to Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, The Flash and Green Lantern. Sure, the Hulk and Spider-Man were somewhat comparable in that regard. But really, when you think about it, it was the movies that made them so much bigger, in the video games, of course, but definitely the movies that really helped them to become such bigger characters. So they theoretically could do that, but a lot of these characters now are just either not as interesting or compelling in their backstories and narratives, or they're kind of being failed by the Marvel formula and the overdone comedy and a lot of the other things that kind of keeps holding Marvel back. They finally just got their own version of Spider-Man working with No Way Home, and it required two better Spider-Men to help them out, with the most iconic live-action one in Tobey Maguire and a very underrated one in Andrew Garfield to help out Tom Holland to become a much more interesting standalone Spider-Man. So, going back to the star power aspect, he's definitely someone who theoretically could be a much bigger and more prominent character moving on with Spider-Man as Tom Holland, but they need to get back to more of the true Spider-Man stories, like the down on his luck, relatable person, the person that is struggling to balance a family life with work at like, a dead-end job, basically at the Daily Bugle. I almost said Daily Planet, and at the same time fighting and being a neighborhood friendly Spider-Man. Being someone who has to sometimes just stop a bank robber. It doesn't always have to be an end of the world Avengers level threat. Jake Gyllenhaal says it could really be just a small stakes storyline. And that's the thing too. Marvel has kept upping the ante, like Toriyama in Dragon Ball Z. He keeps like they keep bringing in newer and bigger things that keep happening with, we're going to destroy all the gods, we're going to blow up the universe, we're going to do this and that. When really, after Endgame and Infinity War, they should have lowered the stakes significantly. That's why, honestly, like, I always considered doing a video about this, but for me, I always felt that Civil War happened way too soon in the MCU storyline. Civil War, for me, should have actually happened after Endgame. Because let's really think about the way that the story plays out with how Civil War is currently incorporated into the MCU storyline. We have the big events of everything building up in the first two Captain Americas, the first two phases of the Avengers. They're really strong. They're able to defeat characters like Ultron. So there definitely is that build up of them becoming stronger and stronger. But before we get the ultimate face-off against the ultimate villain, who would realistically be way more impressive by destroying the Avengers at their strongest, we have Civil War happen, which it has an interesting way that it goes about in the MCU version. Zemo, I feel like, even though I felt like he was a little unnecessary to have a true villain in that sense of the story, we really should have just had an ideological battle, kind of like Daredevil and the Punisher, but with Iron Man and Captain America, and everyone taking their sides and really coming down to the true ideology and the substance of the matter, instead of like, Zemo trying to get super soldiers, and then, by the way, what a twist, it was actually Bucky who killed your parents, and then the fight there. That was still an interesting way of kind of compromising Captain America's morality, but we didn't really need it to play out the way that it did with like a villain in the midst, even though Zemo himself is an interesting character and is performed really great, and maybe is the best part of Captain America and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, whatever that show is called, for the limited amount of time he's in, and that clickbait shot of him putting on a mask literally to take it off just so they could put it in the trailer. So really, when you think about it, they shouldn't have split up the Avengers and had that fight until after they fought Thanos. they also shouldn't have gone back in time and had the whole convoluted story in Endgame. They should have just banded together and defeated him, hero and villain alike, and then you could have had like different, interesting storylines happen there. And maybe you could have even had Civil War just be an entire phase. You didn't have to have it actually be like like a single movie in a Captain America sequel when, let's be honest, it actually was a Avengers movie just called Captain America. So imagine if they were at the height of their strength, the height of their hubris, their pride. They had defeated the most powerful villain ever in Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet, who actually decided that he wanted to be a god and wanted to use the gauntlet to make himself omnipotent like he did in the comics, and all this other stuff that happened, which they definitely should have done that because it would have been way more interesting. At that point, nobody can beat us. We're the Avengers. Well, unless, of course, they're fighting themselves. They're fighting each other, which is the most credible threat at that point. Heroes and former villains team up, taking sides. We want the Registration Act. We don't. We'll fight for the government in order to, get pardoned for the horrible crimes we've committed. And so you start to see a blending and intermixing of the good and the bad. The people really kind of losing their own sense of morality and their principles along the way. And, ultimately basically having that internal struggle within each side, people switching sides, going over, everything like that. And then eventually culminating in that kind of maybe weakening or lessening of what came before. At that point, I think it actually would have been a lot more interesting for Captain America and Iron Man, or one of them at least, to die. Instead of like the sacrifice at the end of Endgame where Robert Downey Jr., does the snap, which again, why did he do a snap? He has omnipotence in his hand. He could just go like this and do the exact same thing, but narrative and cinematic qualities, I guess. And then Captain America just, goes back in time and bangs Peggy for like 80 years and gets old, and then he's done. It would have been way more interesting to see Captain America get shot in the head like he did in the original comic book, and that's kind of the way that the story comes to an end. Or maybe Iron Man does this time around. Maybe Iron Man, like, he sees that Captain America is about to get sniped and killed, and he jumps in the way and sacrifices himself, and then there's this entire massive moral dilemma about, wait a second, even though these two were trying to kill each other seconds ago, they were at each other's throats. Iron Man still proved he was a true hero by sacrificing himself to save Captain America. You could do the other way around. Captain America, he massively disagrees with Iron Man, but he loves Tony Stark so much as a friend and as a brother, he jumps in the front of that bullet like Steve Rogers would do and takes it and dies. That would be such a far more satisfying and interesting and compelling way to end these characters, or to end at least one of them, than what we got in Endgame, and basically since then. And at that point, it also makes sense that if the Avengers break up, they can go into their own little teams, they can go off on their own, have much lower stakes fights and events, rather than, something even bigger than Thanos and stronger in the entire multiverse, with time travel and all this other stuff. They could have made it way more simple, way more compelling, just by doing Civil War after the massive events that we had seen prior. And also, everything that we're seeing right now would actually be a lot more interesting too, because we'd be in the middle of Civil War right now. We wouldn't be in this weird phase that's probably the worst phase thus far, let's be honest, even though some of the movies have been better than like phase 1 or 2. The thing is that, it wouldn't have been this weird in-between phase where it doesn't feel like it's really building to anything. We have a character off here doing this and a character off here doing this. It would actually be building to something, and then we can get more into like the fundamentals and roots again, building up to something else. So again, what we're doing right now in the MCU isn't as compelling, and that's another reason why I feel like bringing Wolverine in, especially as the Hugh Jackman variation to kind of tie it all back together there, is such an interesting, compelling way to go about it. Because, even though it could just be a one-shot spoof, let's make jokes about the X-Men and have Hugh Jackman, Wolverine hanging out with Deadpool and making jokes and stabbing him, and then Deadpool heals, probably chops his head off and he just picks it back up like in the Wolverine credits, and then puts it back on and he's good as new. They could definitely do things like that and have fun with it and just have it be a fun standalone. But at this point, they need to actually start making some more motions and movements to making things compelling. And from that leak footage I did see of the new Ant-Man, it does look like they're at least trying to move forward with the Kang storyline and with, the like what we see in the MCU. But ultimately, I do feel like there are way more fascinating ways that they could take this story and take everything in that direction. But let's see what the chat is saying right now, too. Because right now I'm currently seeing that I put a poll in that chat, and as I see right now, 84% of people are saying that they're excited for Deadpool 3. 16 are saying no. So if you are not excited, jump in that poll right now and make sure everyone knows that. But also, let's see what the chat is actually saying now. And it definitely looks like my quality is coming through at full 100% on YouTube right now. There's no horrible compression at all. It doesn't look like I'm, broadcasting with a PS2. 360p, come on YouTube, what's up with this? I know I'm streaming in like 1080 right now. Go into my settings real quick. I don't know what's going on here with this low quality, but that's maybe something I should be used to at this point. So let's see. What are you guys saying? So, hi everyone. Hi, Blue X, Light One Films, Dirty Dev. I remember I've seen you in the past. Not So Moody. Cole Phelps. I definitely remember a lot of your comments. Ben Affleck was better than Bale as Batman, in my opinion. That's a hard comparison. I mean, Ben Affleck's movies weren't as interesting or compelling to me as like The Dark Knight or The Dark Knight Rises, and maybe in Batman Begins. But he definitely had the potential to be maybe the best live action Batman. And when he was originally cast, I know a lot of people gave him shit, but that's literally every single casting DC does for the most part. And honestly, some of them don't work out, like Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. But I think that Ben Affleck was a great choice, and I thought that even at the time. And when I saw him in BVS and I saw him in the Snyder Cut, I still agree with that. I think he's a great Batman, and he just needs more. Same thing with Henry Cavill. Like, it's inexcusable at this point that we've gotten, what, 2 movies with Henry Cavill as Superman? We should have had an entire series of Man of Steel movies by this point with him fighting Brainiac and, maybe even a Lobo movie, or something like that. There's so much that they could have done that they just didn't do because, WB basically hates Superman now, and DC does too because he represents the strong, masculine, heroic character of old that they're trying to actively undermine and destroy in current media, the Laughingstock Media, remember. And let's see, Bale was goofy AF. I mean, he did some goofy stuff, but every Batman does. Like, I've seen every version of Batman, the Adam West one, yeah, Michael Keaton, and all the other people who've played him. And there's always a degree of camp and goofiness in all these movies. Like, there's always that going on, Nolan dialed it down, so did Matt Reeves with the new Batman movie, but then you still have things like stool pigeon, like those ridiculous riddles that they did in the new movie, and then like Christian Bale turning around to talk to Selena Kyle, and he's like, "Oh, that's what that feels like," because she disappeared. I could do a way better Batman voice than that. Where are the drugs going? Swear to me. Rubber baby buggy bumpers. Under the Red Hood is so good, says Blue X, and yeah, I agree with that. Darius Williams, how's it going? I don't remember. Were you from New Zealand? How's it going down under? No, that's an Australian impression. I gotta do a Kiwi one. Oi, how's it going down under? No, I can't do an Australian accent. I could do an Austrian one. Not an Australian, though. Ultron just offed. Yeah, Ultron was really disappointing. The movie and also, how he was utilized in the story. He could have done so much more, been so much better, but instead he just got erased, basically, and that's it. He got Hokkai'd by Vision. Luis Giuliano Victorio... Damn it, I'm so bad at pronouncing names. Luis Giuliano Victorero Moya. Close enough. Give me some credit for trying. They really need to do a proper and good casting decisions with the X-Men. Just leave the woke shit behind. It's okay to have some diversity, but people are all out against. I mean, what's the X-Men about? Like, the X-Men was about that, the civil rights movement, and it was like Professor X was Martin Luther King, and Magneto was Malcolm X. Which is kind of funny, even though Professor X is not Malcolm. You know what I mean? But when you really think about it, yeah, they could have done. They need to like do it the way that Stan Lee and the iconic writers behind those books did it, instead of just making it like in your face. Even like I remember First Class, they were a little bit too on the nose at points, like where Mystique was like mutant and proud, and it's like, okay, we get it, Jennifer. But at least she was trying back then. Garda Trace, how's it going? Prior to the MCU, the only A-list Marvel characters were Spider-Man, Hulk, Wolverine, X-Men, the Fantastic Four. The other heroes didn't matter. Yeah, for the most part, they weren't as interesting, or at least they weren't as iconic. Captain America, I would still argue maybe, but he was gone for so long, and he was seen as like campy and useless. But the way that they had utilized Captain America in the MCU is really what they should have done with Superman in the DCEU and just Superman in general. Made him like, just give him like that earnest, true feeling and sticking true to what he believes in, and he would have been way more interesting. But then again, people always make the same tired argument: Superman's too strong to be compelling. No, he isn't. You just need to have better writers, and that's happened many times. Like Grant Morrison, he did a way better job with Superman than the vast majority of people nowadays do, especially considering the fact that they keep making Superman do a lot of things that are not Superman at all, let's be honest. Uh, hey, JP Hadaraki, how you doing? I see that you really enjoy cape shit according to your comments. No one cared about Cap or really any of the other DC characters. At least DC didn't give Marvin the Manhunter, I'm guessing you mean Martian Manhunter, a movie nobody would care about. I don't know. I guess, to be honest, I'd probably go see a Martian Manhunter movie, but I know I'm probably in the minority there because I've always thought he's really cool. But the way that everything was introduced and executed in the Timverse, million times better than either the current MCU or the current whatever is happening in DC right now. It was kind of a master class, let's say. Uh, Only my vote matters to the 16% win. I like that viewpoint. It's not always the majority that is correct. Or is it? In a democracy, maybe. I love democracy. One movie later. The Republic will be reorganized into the First Galactic Empire. I guess you didn't love it too much then, did you, Palpatine? Did you, Sheev? To be honest, Spawn is a more interesting character than Captain America. I mean, Spawn is an interesting anti-hero type of character. I've always liked him in theory, but oftentimes we don't really get the best execution. We're still waiting on that Jamie Foxx Spawn movie. Why? Jamie Foxx, that's a strange choice for Spawn. I'm just going to think of Elektra the whole time, probably. Man of Steel is the best version of live-action DBZ fighting. Probably. I mean, I would argue that maybe Zack Snyder would make a good Dragon Ball Z movie, but at the same time, I wouldn't want him to write it because he's a way better writer, or vice versa. He's a way better director than he is a writer, that's for sure. Because when he just gets to write whatever he wants without any kind of interference whatsoever, we often will get things like, Army of the Dead, which was not good at all. And also had poor cinematography with like a pixel on the screen for half the movie. That was really distracting for me. And hey, Denizen of the Ages, I have not seen you in a little while. How are you doing? OMG, I hope Mike LSM's all over YouTube's face for me not getting the notification the stream until right now. Yeah, that's one of the things, that's one of the reasons why and I noticed a lot of other people in the past stream for so long, because most people don't actually get notifications or anything for these streams until a while after they started. So that tends to be one of the issues, well, one of the many, many, many issues with this platform when it comes to delivering notifications and letting people know that somebody's actually uploaded, that you could be hours into a stream and you won't even see, like, you'll finally see it pop up on somebody's homepage or, sometimes in their description feed or subscription feed, and then maybe they'll get notifications. I have multiple accounts, theoretically, that are subscribed to this channel, and none of them ever get any notifications, and they haven't in years. So that to me seems pretty indicative of YouTube delivering my notifications. And another massive reason why my channel's growth dropped off pretty much around that same time. But Mike, it's all your fault, says YouTube. It was never anything we did. Our algorithm's working perfectly fine. East Asia is our ally. Eurasia is our enemy. Eurasia is our ally. East Asia is our enemy. I love Big Brother. Hopefully people get that reference. If you don't, go read 1984. And now you get the reference. I understood that reference as Captain America. Mike, so apparently I'm Sheev, and I am the evil we didn't request, but he's the decimation of all loved we required to view things correctly. Fandom blinds kiddos into a false sense of belief. Sure. Mind of the North Star. Is that Kenshiro's cousin? I'm hype as fuck for Ant-Man 3, honestly. I'll be honest, I like both the Ant-Man movies. I heard a lot of people didn't really enjoy Ant-Man the Wasp. I thought it was pretty good. I actually rewatched it when I was in Vegas, it was one of those, like, they constantly were playing all the MCU movies on loop when I was there. So the times I would be hanging out in the hotel room, particularly after I had a lot of drinks, I would be watching some of those movies. And Ant-Man 2 was on, and I watched most of it. I still really enjoy it. It's not like the best MCU movie or anything, but I'm looking forward to the next one. That one also had a lot of Deadpool inspiration, I feel like, especially in the scene where he's like shrunk down in like the little body with that malfunctioning suit and he's running around the school. That felt straight out of Deadpool when he gets like cut in half and then he's like growing the baby legs and everything. So yeah, that's another really interesting little inspiration I noticed there. It also keeps unsubscribing me, by the way. Thanks, Susan. Yeah, that's another thing that's really annoying about doing YouTube. I have so many people who get unsubscribed from me that don't even do it themselves. Like, they constantly will get unsubscribed every time, literally every time I stream now, anytime I upload a video. When you don't upload or do activity on your channel for a while, when you go and you upload something, YouTube, at least in my case, will auto unsubscribe people in mass. So for no reason at all that I can think of, because oftentimes I'd upload the same type of content, oftentimes I would, you know, I would be able to account for, maybe people would unsubscribe because they're like, oh, I remember this guy, I'm not interested anymore, or, I don't like what he's saying in this video. But usually whenever I go a little while and then I come back and start uploading in, mass unsubscribes happen for no reason. So that's another thing that's really frustrating and kind of feels difficult when you do YouTube, where it feels like when you come back, you actually are doing more harm than you did when you were gone. Because my growth is actually at points since I've come back been worse than it was for the like 8-9 months that I stopped uploading. Like somehow I would literally gain subscribers on months where I wasn't uploading for months at a time, and I would be, getting more views on certain videos than I am right now since I came back, which is it shows that the YouTube algorithm is totally working. It's totally great, and Susan is great at her job, and she shouldn't be fired immediately by the shareholders, of which I am one. Hey Mike, what do you think about Gundam? It's my favorite anime series, says Chun-Li fanboy. You've got some really good taste. Chun-Li is she's pretty awesome. But yeah, what do I think about Gundam? I really enjoy it from what I've seen thus far. I haven't seen every Gundam series, but I thought Gundam Wing was awesome when I saw it. I thought that Gundam 8 OS Team was awesome. I don't remember what it's called. I thought that G Gundam was awesome. You know, Shining Finger! That was pretty great. Um, I think I saw a little bit of Gundam Unicorn years ago on Sci-Fi. Is that the one that they used to always play on Sci-Fi late at night? Saw some of that I thought was decent. So yeah, I've seen a good amount of Gundam, and I did really enjoy it. I'd love to have a Gundam in real life, even though it would be basically a weapon of. Well, let me not say that on the internet, but yeah, it it would be really really dangerous in real life for Gundams to exist. But yeah, I do really enjoy it from what I've seen thus far. I know it's a big series, but I haven't really watched a lot of it since I was like a teenager. But I probably would go back and watch some more. I know that there's like a movie coming out soon, but am I even able to watch that without seeing another series or something beforehand? I think it's gonna be in theaters near me, so I was considering going to see it. But if I have to watch like a whole show beforehand, which is harder and harder for me these days to like binge things, it wouldn't really be feasible for me to do that. The unsub algorithm is no longer active. Happened 11322 was last date I resubbed to folk and never had it happen again. I don't really know. I mean, maybe that's just your channel at the moment, but for me, it still seems like it's happening all the time. Chun Li kneels to Jury. I'm trying to remember who Jury is, but yeah, I don't mind Chun Li kneeling that much to be honest. Hashtag Susan, yeah. Let's get that going in the comments. Hashtag Susan. Ant-Man the Wasp was whack. The first one was better, says Garda Trace. I don't think I disagree with the first one being better, but I don't really dislike Ant-Man the Wasp. I just think that there are things that they definitely could have done better. Like Walton Goggins is totally wasted in that movie. Um, they do make Scott Lang seem a little too dumb. It is a little ridiculous with like the quantum realm and magical healing powers and stuff, and you know, it to a lot of people they basically felt like it was a filler movie until they had the post credit scene with the snap. But I enjoyed the movie. So Denizen asks me, Mike, how do you feel about Death Metal Knights from DC? It's the biggest thing I wish their awesome animators would create. It sounds pretty awesome, but I haven't read it. I actually haven't really kept up with DC or Marvel in years because of the fact that I just don't really like the direction they've taken a lot of their comics. Not even before they went in the super political direction, which really turns me off and has always turned me off from movies and shows even before the current age that we live in. I never really liked ones that just preached you on the surface. They're not really as entertaining or enjoyable to watch as a movie that, is more subtle about what they're doing. Subtle, subconscious, subtext, all those different subs right there. Give me a sub, by the way. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. But yeah, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, it sounds pretty cool. But I just like for Marvel for me, one of the big things that turned me off like years ago was Chaos War. Like I thought that was like a huge cop out ending because you build up this awesome villain Mikaboshi, and then it's like Mikaboshi, he's gonna win. He beats everyone. He destroys everyone. He's stronger than Thanos with the Gauntlet or the Heart of the Universe or whatever they were trying to imply. And then they just do that massive cop out ending, and they also kind of like massively retconned a lot of other things, like Hercules becomes the one above all, which doesn't make any sense because the one above all is literally the omnipowerful monotheistic god that created everything. That's basically the god of the Bible, and is basically the same being as in Marvel and DC. And so how the hell does Hercules become him and then still not actually be able to beat Mikaboshi? And it's like, well, Mikaboshi won because he took over a pocket universe. The end. Okay, sure, not a massive cop out at all, Marvel. And then Brightest Day, I just thought was pretty weak on DC's end. Darkest Night I thought was a pretty awesome concept, and I believe it was spearheaded by another very famous YouTuber whose name you probably know, and maybe many of you watch his channel. And Brightest Day, I wasn't really that into it though. Like everything building up to Swamp Thing, and kind of like just a lot of what happened. I didn't really care for the execution there. So those were the things that kind of made me just not really interested in reading on a concurrent basis with either big franchise. But every once in a while, I'd still go back and read a little bit here and there. Plus, most of the comics I read at the time were digital, and that was during a period of time when I didn't really have like there's been periods of time in my life where I haven't had constant migraines like I do right now and when I did as a kid. And so it was a lot easier for me to read that back then than it is right now. So yeah. Yeah, I knew it was pronounced Chun-Li. I kept saying that, and then every single person always tells me it's Chun-Li, Mike. It's like, no, it isn't. I know better. I'm the one who played these games, including in Japanese. A lot of times I could only play them in Japanese, though, because I would have, like, the demos, like Dead or Alive 3 on the Dreamcast. I played the shit out of that game, especially the demo. I loved that game. I used to turn the jiggle physics all the way up, too. Every time I play with them. That was always a fun time. No alcohol required, because I was way too young at the time to drink, Jeremy. Plus, let's be honest, how often is Jeremy drinking compared to smoking? That's why I liked when he switched it over for a period of time, and instead of no alcohol required, he had him like holding a bong. But I'm guessing that YouTube cracked down a little bit on that, which is a shame because alcohol is way more deadly and devastating for you than cannabis ever will be. I did think it was kind of funny because the other day I was looking at one of my videos, and this is before I just caved in and gave YouTube the money for premium because I'm tired of watching 15 ads per video and most of them being unskippable and the same freaking advertisements over and over again. And I did see basically like a THC advertisement on one of my videos. That was pretty surprising to me because I thought that maybe that was still illegal to advertise that, especially to, sell it like in the sense that they do. But I got that on there, so what am I gonna do? I'm all about the free market, and I'm not gonna complain. If that becomes what is the biggest advertiser on my channel, as long as they ante up a little bit, that'd be nice. Mikaboshi and then Franklin Richards and then Doom and then I don't know what you're talking about. I grew up playing BattleTech and realized that game was robbed from anime. No spoilers, and that's why I asked. It's awesome. I suggest you read it. So which one, Robotech? Gotta give me a little bit more context with your questions sometimes, because a lot of times I'm talking and I go on tangents, and it's hard for me to read the comments. That's another reason why I occasionally, which is probably like every stream, I just say, you guys, if you want, you could always send in super chats. I'm not going to beg for money like a lot of other YouTubers, but I always appreciate them, and they at least pin it in like a big blue circle or whatever for me, so it's so much easier for me to read because, like, I don't know if you guys can notice, but I'm squinting a lot for a reason, and that is because I probably need a new prescription. I actually have terrible vision, by the way. Like I wear contacts all the time, and sometimes I wear glasses. I don't think I've ever worn them in a video or on stream. Maybe I should so that people, automatically start thinking I'm like way more intelligent. Who knows? But the thing is that I'd be that anime guy with the glasses. Every once in a while, I'd make a joke and go, but I gotta get my lighting right so it'll like reflect off my glasses. Uh, but yeah. It's hard to read these chats sometimes, especially when I'm talking and focusing on one subject or one thing. And yes, I do really enjoy Dead or Alive. I'm actually a huge fighting game fan. I've played most of the key staples. I love Dead or Alive, or at least some of the older ones I haven't played in a while. I love Soul Calibur. That might actually be my favorite fighting franchise. I also like Street Fighter, Tekken. Um, A lot of those games. I Clay Fighters, I used to love playing that. That was pretty awesome. I liked the concept behind DC versus Mortal Kombat. Oh yeah, Mortal Kombat, obviously, I should mention that too. And yeah, need to make my channel joinable. What do you mean by that? Like the memberships? I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure if that would be viable on my channel. If people wanted memberships, I guess you could always let me know. I don't really know how those work, to be honest. Like I think they're basically like either Patreon or what they do on Twitch with subscribers. But I don't know. I guess if that's something that people want to do in the future, I don't really have that set up on my channel at the moment. It's more of like a supply and demand thing for me. If people actually want me to do these things, then of course I'll do them. But I did do a Patreon years ago, and maybe it was the timing or something. I don't quite know, but it didn't really work out. And I was offering some crazy bonuses and benefits. Like for the $50 tier, I literally would make any video you told me to make, like once a month. And like you could, there was no limit on how many, like 100 people could have joined that $50 a month tier, and I would have just made nonstop videos from Patreon for those people, just because the fact that I just really wanted people to sign up, and didn't really end up working out. So like, I don't think most channels I've ever followed have offered anything remotely like that, and I probably will never offer that again because that would be insane. I would be burnt out within like a day. So yeah. Mike never saw wear glasses, but watched him play Magic the Gathering online. Saw that, thought that the eyes thing. Yeah, I don't have good vision. Did I play Magic on Twitch? I don't remember. I know I played Hearthstone and Yu-Gi-Oh. Maybe I did play Magic at one point. Magic is more of like a more recent game for me. Like I've always been a big card game fan. I mean, I've always been a big card game fan, as some of you may have noticed by me showing you this right here. Um, Although I don't play with any of those because they're physical commodities for investing, is how I justify it to myself through mental gymnastics. But nonetheless, I do enjoy strategy games. Card games are a fun one that I like to play, and I never really played Magic much until recently. Though I don't know why. I think it's just because you know, I grew up in a scarcity situation, let's just say, and when you grow up in where you don't really have money, are you going to be able to really get into a game like Magic, where some of the best decks you have to put a good amount of money into building? Or, another thing is too, like, I prefer to play games like card games nowadays digitally, because the fact that I don't like to really keep up with the metagame. I like to basically just construct my own custom decks and just have fun in that regard. And when you have to spend money to keep up with a meta and do all these things, and a lot of the cards you really want to play with cost a bunch of money, do I want to do that, or do I want to just play the games for free and then collect the cards themselves for what is it, for investment purposes? And I think that that kind of lines up more with what I got. And I have a good mix of classic and new card game or cards, which I could probably get into at some point. Like, I've considered maybe doing like a tour video of my collection, not only just movies and stuff, but also like my cards, because I have done a good amount of like getting cards recently. Like, here's some of mine I got recently, for example. Like, here's ones I just pulled from, what is it, Lost Abyss, the new Pokemon English set. Like, here's my Rainbow Zoroark. Don't read into that rainbow. Misfortune Sisters, the full art ones. That's worth more than the other variations. I think it's actually worth more than the rainbow for some reason. I have a good amount of all arts now. I have a lot of classic cards, though, I got from like Japan when I was a kid. Well, I got them from Japan in Epcot in Disney, for example. But as you could see, like over here, I wish that this had a much longer cord. I have like all of the most recent. I don't even know if you could see that. I have like all the most recent like Pokemon Arceus based all arts, and the Champ, the Palkia, the Dialga, um, the most rare trainers. Got an old school Dark Magician. There's some Magic that I bought recently for fun, to collect really. Let's see. There's my old school base set Mewtwo, my Gym Trainer Mewtwo, my Sabrina's Alakazam, my base set Venusaur, my Ghost Rare Yu-Gi-Oh cards, uh, all these Radiant All Arts and Golden cards. I got that Golden Mew and Pikachu recently. There's like a base set box from this new card game that's going to go up in value, and I got a bunch of ETBs and stuff too. So it it's a long, as you could see too. Like, look, all these other things I've been collecting over the years. Hey, there's me on screen. Let's see. There's a lot of my movies that I have. I also have a ton of them back here next to my guitar that I play from time to time, as you might have seen on my last stream. Uh, let's see. There's a. Can we like not do a Dutch angle? What is this? The first Thor movie? I mean, geez, Mike. You're supposedly a filmmaker and you're terrible with cinematography. Where's the contradiction there? Let's see. This is my vintage video game systems. Can you stop like being blurry? Thank you. Uh, you know, I don't know. The list goes on. I gotta do like a whole video at some point, probably. That'd probably be a good idea for me to do that. I actually never even did a room tour video on here. I don't know why. Like, you'd think that I would have done that, but I guess I just was so caught up in the algorithm that I just didn't even try to. Because I was like, should I do a room tour video and have fun on my channel today, which is the entire point of why I started doing this? Or should I make a Dragon Ball video and try and pay my bills? Yeah. So let's see. Guarded Trace. Mad respect for Soul Calibur being your favorite fighting game series. Thank you. Which game is your favorite? Mine is 3. Mine's 2. The one on the GameCube. I always love that one. I've beaten that game so many times. I actually got it recently on the Xbox, the Xbox, as Angry Joe would say. And, Josh and I probably say way more than Joe ever did. And, I really enjoy that game. I love it. And it's one of my favorite fighting games ever. Maybe my favorite. I do love like Children of the Atom though, and those old school Marvel arcade games. Those were great. Like, I just playing those as a kid. Primal Rage was awesome. I loved that game too. There was like a video I've had on my watch later for like 6 months now that somebody did about that game. I gotta watch it at some point. You're living a rags to riches story, JP. That's pretty cool. It's hard not to have some respect for people who start out, at a low place in their life, or somewhere where they're struggling to get by, and then they succeed at what they're really striving for, and they do well. I got nothing but appreciation and respect for that. That's something I'm trying to do, and we'll have to see. Been only red player since 1998. I'm not sure what that is. Oh, do you mean red like the type in Magic? Yeah, I play mostly like black, white, black and blue. Throw some red in there. I don't know. I gravitate toward black, even though I'm wearing blue right now. I was gonna be like, I gravitate toward black, and I realized this is like the one day I'm not wearing um, like all black like a goth. And that's the thing. Like, I just dress in all black most of the time, like I'm at a freaking funeral. Like Winona Ryder and Beetlejuice, except I wish I was born like 10, 20 years earlier, because she would have been pretty awesome to be with. But yeah, let's see. Yeah, I get so tired of those counter decks in Magic. It's so annoying. Like I just it's so frustrating when you play against decks that do nothing but counter, 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 counter every single freaking time that you play anything. It's just so annoying. It's like, can I play my freaking like the counter decks and the mill decks? I fucking hate those decks. Like, just let me play my cards and have fun. Stop being an asshole and just like by the way, here's another blue card, and you're going to mill 15 cards right now just because I played one blue, because I have, like, Teferi's, or Teferi's, or however you pronounce his name. I've literally only read any of these characters' names. His tutelage and stuff down. It's like, can I please just play my cards and have fun? Like, I'm playing this game for fun, not to be competitive, and even then it's like just ban those decks. It's like in Hearthstone, the Jabberwock decks. If I never have to freaking hear my heart, my eye, well, how does it go? I think I've blocked it out because I have PTSD from every time somebody plays that freaking card. Uh, what is it? My eyes that bind, my claws that catch. And I hate that so much. There've literally been turns when I'm playing Hearthstone where it will take like an hour per opponent turn because they're playing Jabberwock so many times. Like, it's literally just, I hate it so much. I hate that card. They should never made it. That's the problem with card games too. Sometimes they make cards that immediately obliterate and ruin the game. Like, they destroy the game because of how broken the cards are. In, Hearthstone, they literally go in, they tweak the cards because of the fact that they keep breaking their own game with them. But yeah, the Jabberwock, they never should have made that. What do I think of Soul Calibur 6? I'm pretty sure I have it on the PC, and I don't believe I've played it yet. That's the thing. Let me look at my. Do I have Steam on this one? Let me see. I can show you all the games I have on Steam and the games I have yet to play. Oh boy, they're doing a big download. Hopefully this isn't gonna like destroy my stream quality right now. I have like 150 games or something on Steam, and I have played maybe like 10 of them. That's one of the things with doing YouTube. Like I've said this in the past, like YouTube, when you do it full time, it like just consumes your life. So you don't have time to do so many other things that you want to do and have fun with. It's like, oh, I'll buy these movies and I'll watch them later, or like, I'll put all these things on my queue and I'll enjoy them later, or like, I'll get all these video games and I'll play them later, and then you never do, and then they just build up, and kind of sucks. So I've been trying to play a little bit more, but now I also have a full-time job, so, doing YouTube and a full-time job and all this other stuff, you only have so much energy for so many things. Not to mention I'm also working on a book series and other projects at the same time. Yeah, I juggle a lot, as you might have noticed. I don't have enough hands or arms to hold all of these goals. Why can't I hold all of these goals? But yeah, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Looking forward to seeing it again. In terms of the MCU moving forward, I don't know. I don't see it getting much worse than it already has got in this phase, like with some of the shows and some of the movies that came out, like, you know, Love and Thunder. I didn't even watch Miss Marvel. I was like, nah, I'm good. But She-Hulk though, so I don't really know how bad Miss Marvel is, but it is hard to believe that it could be worse than She-Hulk. And I'm still watching She-Hulk, I guess because I just am suffering the torture until Matt Murdock shows up. But I'm just not. I'm not expecting it to be all that great, even when he does. Like, is suddenly the show going to go from a 2 to being a 10 out of nowhere because Matt Murdock's in it, or are they going to, make Matt Murdock look bad just like literally everything else in the show has thus far, including CGI, especially with She-Hulk. The Hulk actually looked decent when he was on screen, but She-Hulk just looks terrible most of the time when she is like, it's a lot of it comes down to the lighting too, because they have her character, half the show is sitting in this office, which is like this modern office, all windows, blaring sunlight in. It's like she looks like a terrible cartoon character. So I can't imagine the MCU is going to be worse than She-Hulk or anything moving forward. I mean, I've definitely been wrong before about quality dips, but I have a little bit more anticipation going forward just because of the lows that we've seen thus far. Super Eye Patch Wolf showed you how much money goes into some of this YouTube stuff. It really tipped me off or tripped me out. Do you mean how much money we invest into YouTube? I mean, yeah, like there are channels that dump tons of money into their channel. Some channels are literally given money by YouTube, though, like Mr. Beast and stuff like that. Hypothetically, I don't want to get sued, but yeah, some of those channels, they're propped up by YouTube, just like reality shows used to be by like MTV and stuff like that, like as if Bam Margera was spending all of his money on half the stuff in Viva La Bam, or, like all this stuff was happening in the real world was totally being paid for by these like 20 something year olds. I'm in my 30s and I still can't afford my own place. Like, that I actually own. Like, I doubt these 20 somethings, in the early 2000s who are wasted 24/7 are definitely going to afford all this stuff and aren't going to be given money and having all these things coerced and, producers overseeing them. That's the thing. So many of these reality based channels are just totally fake on YouTube, too. Ever since he started doing a little bit more, I mean, I'll be honest. At first, when I heard about Logan Paul, he was one of those channels that I was not necessarily a fan of. He was one of those channels that was like, oh, this is one of those other cringy YouTube channels where the guy is super up and like crazy and doing all this wacky stuff in reality, but as I learned a little bit more about him and, his love of Pokemon cards and, collecting those and his real genuine fandom for wrestling like I've always been, and, the fact that he was able to go and do that and is doing that for a living now, it's kind of hard for me not to have respect for the guy and enjoy some of his stuff. But yeah, aside from that, like there are a lot of those channels that are just fake, and even him, he probably gets money from YouTube and all these other companies to do a lot of the things that he would do on his channel. Who's to really say that he bought some of this stuff out of the money that he got out of his own pocket? I mean, he used to say that obviously, but hey, Logan, so I don't piss you off entirely. Want to be on my channel in the future? I could have you on Laughingstock Media. How's it going? Yeah, like that's ever gonna happen. Is Black and Fist still alive? Who are they? And yeah, Juan is still alive. You just have to mention Lance and he'll come running. That was something we used to do. Juan was always a huge fan of Mr. Fusion. Let's be honest, who isn't? But he would, he was such a fan that every time Lance would be on a call with us, Juan would always be there. And like a lot of times we would make jokes with Black and Fist. That's, I just call him Juan because that's his real name. And he would always like, we would be like, oh, by the way, so Lance, how are you doing? And then like Juan would disappear from our calls for like an hour or more on end sometimes. Like that was always how he was. He was always weird and mysterious, like going in different places like the wind. And he he would just disappear from our calls for periods of time, or he would show up hours late. It is Black and Fist. So like when he would do that, we would make like little jokes. So we would be like, so by the way, Lance, how's everything going? And Lance wouldn't even be on the call, and Juan would be like, wait a second, Lance is here. He would always show up for Lance, Mr. Fusion. So it was always pretty funny. And yeah, so I've always liked Juan. He's really cool. He's definitely an interesting person, to say the least. Yeah, sometimes it definitely YouTube is not a meritocracy. It isn't fair. I said this in my going away video, Denizen. Sometimes your channel will just get wiped out in an instant because YouTube decided one day that it will, even though somebody is doing literally the same thing and getting away with it for no reason. Hey, Golden Scouta, how are you doing today? Yeah, it definitely is something that I often look back upon fondly, which is the period of time where, you know, most of the See, I don't even like to describe myself as a Dragon Ball YouTuber. That's the thing. Like, I've never wanted to describe myself as that because that was never my goal on the channel, and I've made, I feel like I've made that clear enough times. But either way, like when all of my friend group, I'll just say that, were on YouTube, and we were all working together, and it was Quaman, Black and Fist, my Geekdom, Josh from Dragon Ball Nation. I just call him Josh. Most of these people I just use their real names because they're just people I know in real life and I don't think of them as YouTubers. But like, we were all together making videos, having fun like all the time, having these hangouts. We'd literally spend all night, like every night, talking like on Skype and maybe eventually Discord. Like we'd be up all night, every single night talking and just goofing off and making jokes and just all this stuff. And YouTube was so much more fun back then, but then a lot of them stopped uploading, or upload even less like Juan. And like it never really was the same. Like we never had those group calls anymore after a period of time. And then there were internal issues with us, especially between me and certain members of the group. And then after that point, a lot of times it never really was what it should have been. We could have still done those things. I often volunteered to do those. Let's all get on a call, let's all have fun, let's all try and do it like it was. But there were egos and other things at play that oftentimes made that not a possibility. There were, personal matters between people, deceptions going on, different things that ultimately caused the rift and the cliques that formed and everything like that over time. And oftentimes it felt like I was the one being excluded from all of that. And it was really frustrating for me because I mostly just wanted to hang out with my friends and have fun and, upload and to do well like a lot of them were doing. But I was going through a lot at the time and some of them were too. And, I'm not going to act like I was perfect and everything, or, I'm a human being at the end of the day. I'm flawed, I'm fallible, I am someone who makes mistakes, and, I am someone who has weaknesses of my own in certain ways. And, either way, there were certain things that were done to me, certain actions taken by people who used to claim to be my friend that I used to really look up to or that I used to really enjoy spending time with. And then it just ended up going the way it did, where, I was excluded from certain cliques, and some people attempted to even cancel me basically because the fact that we got into arguments on the freaking internet about nothing, about a show, about you know it goes on. Like, I'm sure people have seen videos about these things in the past, and some of them did in fact happen. Some were represented incorrectly, but some of these internal struggles and strifes and things between me and other members absolutely did happen. And I'm not going to, be untruthful about that because it definitely is something that went down and is part of what soured me on YouTube as well. Because when you go from having fun all the time and having a friend group and succeeding together to it being where everything is a struggle to even get people on your videos, and where people have different viewpoints about how they should promote their channel and their content, and about how like, maybe it's okay to be deceptive about this thing, or maybe it's okay to milk this thing for more money, or maybe it's okay to treat people like this in private and then publicly present yourself a certain way, or maybe it's okay that, Mike, you put in so much effort to be everyone's friend. You literally fly across the country to go hang out with people. You do all these things for them, and then they don't do even one quarter of the things in return for you, you know. And then when you express something like this, or when you see that these things are happening and the trends are written on the wall, and then you're presented to be the bad guy, that's something that's also really discouraging, and that kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And that's certainly something I would have to say happened with me, you know, where I really wish that a lot of those things hadn't happened. And you know, I've oftentimes tried to play the peacemaker in those situations, just not John Cena. You could actually see me probably, but it doesn't always go the way that you really want it to. And you know, I've even had situations like that happen similarly to me recently with people and relationships where, you know, I did everything in my power to maintain them and to keep them going, but ultimately they just didn't want that. They didn't want to put in any of the effort, and they didn't want to really be with me. And really, when you think about it, if you're the one putting in all of the effort, is that person really someone who wants to be with you anyway? If you have to do everything in your power to keep someone as your friend, or to keep someone in a relationship with you, does that person really deserve to be in your life anyway? Do they really deserve to be with you when you're at your lowest point or when you're succeeding? You know, and that's kind of how I view it, I guess, now, where you know, the coming back to YouTube has also really kind of showed me who some people really are my friends and who aren't. Because a lot of the people who used to claim to be my friends, I would do videos with, all this stuff, have not even messaged me since I came back to YouTube. They couldn't care less. They haven't even said, "Hey, Mike, can I be on your channel? Can I do this? Can I do that?" They just act, you know, again, they're basically acting like I don't exist, because I don't know, some own internal issues that they have that they're working through, and they want to project on me, I suppose. You know, I've always been there. I've always said that I'll be there to talk, and I'll do this and I'll do that, and you know, I am always willing to go out of my way to help people. But if they don't even want to make the slightest iota of effort to you know, be a part of my life, then why am I doing so much to keep them, or keep me in theirs? And that's really how relationships, I guess, kind of are in a lot of the cases. I know I kind of got off on yet another tangent, and sometimes that's the way it is. But yeah, that's part of the thing that I do enjoy about these live conversations, I suppose, these hangout sessions I'm doing now, where I could talk about a topic, but fortunately, I could also talk about literally anything else. And yeah, Darius, that is life, I suppose. You know, I'm learning more and more about that as life goes on, you know. I'm definitely a good amount older than I was when I first started YouTube, and I'm in a different place than I was, maybe not literally, because I'm still in the same house, but you know, I'm in a different room at least. I'm not in that upstairs area anymore where it would literally be over 100 degrees every single day in the summer, because there's no insulation upstairs. And like, I would be cooking in my room, making videos for like 8 to 12 hours, just literally just like sweating like crazy, and you know, just dehydrated and just horrible, making videos like at a wooden desk, and with like a wooden chair before I could even afford this, on like an older computer. And you know, it was miserable. And then during the winter, it would just be freezing. There's all the cold would come in. I'd be wearing a winter coat with the heat blasting, but the heat barely even goes up there. So it now I'm in here. But the main thing I don't like about this room is the sound. It's a little too echoey, and I'm someone who really wants good sound, but you know, currently I'm using this kind of microphone, and I'm in a echoey room. So, you know, life isn't always the way you want it to go, but sometimes you just have to say screw it and do it anyway. One of the most annoying and broken Pokemon cards was Seismitoad EX. I'm not really sure. I honestly don't really remember how to play the Pokemon game, like the card game, that is. When I was a kid, I used to play it when the game first came out, but I never really got like a firm grasp on all of the mechanics and rules behind it, because everyone I played with had their own rules. It was like basically playground rules. I remember my neighbors I used to play with, we would just play, instead of like jumping on their trampoline, we'd use the trampoline to play cards on. And they would say, well, actually, when you attack a Pokemon and you lower their health to 100 to 0, or their attack or whatever it was at the time, you have to attack them again to destroy them. And it was like there were so many different variations of the rules, and I've always preferred the actual video games. I've played all of them except for Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield. Oh, thanks, Golden Scouter. But if I wear these headphones, my sound, these are like 7.1 surround headphones. I just don't wear them because they don't have a microphone. Um, it doesn't sound anywhere near as good to me when I use those. But like, fuck, like I said, damn this chair, I gotta just burn this freaking thing. It's trying to cut my fingers off now. When I damn possessed chair. Yeah, I don't remember what I was gonna say. Who cares? Yeah, I used to do a lot of videos with Geekdom back in the day. We did for years even, but it's not really something like I don't really do collabs with people anymore. It's not like I don't know. Let me see. You gotta run and teach my kiddos how to wash his hair. Just wait until you're a dad. Stay swell, Mike. Much love. Well, I appreciate that, Dennis, and I like that you've still been watching my channel this whole time. That's something I do appreciate, because you were reacting to my videos even when I was a lot smaller. And maybe one day I'll get lucky enough to have a family and be a dad. But I've heard a lot of people tell me that I would be a good dad because I do have a lot of patience, especially with people at my job and kids and animals and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's something that for a lot of people might be easily attainable, but for me, it seems like it's one of my most difficult goals in life to achieve, is to reach that point in my life, I suppose you could say, in terms of a relationship. But everyone has their own struggles and things that they're going through, and some things are harder for others than other things like that. And thank you, Chun-Li fanboy. I appreciate that. What was I responding to before? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that I used to make videos with. I just don't anymore, and you know, some of them are for like some of them are because of things that happened between us, like off screen, behind the scenes, let's say. And some of them are just because, sometimes you just grow apart from people, or you just move in a different direction in your life, and then you don't really like make videos anymore with them, or they don't make videos in general. And I'm not really making videos traditionally recently anyway. I'm doing live streams because I just don't really want to edit videos right now. I just got so burnt out on doing it. And it just, every time I go back and try and edit videos, whether it be for my job or otherwise, it's just such a miserable experience now for me. And it sucks because it's like I can definitely make videos. Like I still have the talent to do it, but I don't have the mind to do it. And maybe saying I have the talent to do something is prideful or something. I don't know, but nonetheless, I could make videos, but it just would not be a fun experience for me at all. And that's what I'm trying to do on YouTube right now. I'm trying to have it where I'm having fun here. And yeah, my voices, my impressions, I feel like would make them laugh too. You know, I can't wait until I have kids one day and I can show them all my favorite movies and stuff. Like, you know, I still remember the first time I ever saw Terminator 2 when I was a little kid. Like, that's one of those movies that just instantly made a lifelong impression on me, and I can't wait to be able to show my own family that. Even like, it would be cool, even like, I see some of those videos sometimes, those reaction channels, like first time watching, which some of them are definitely fake, but, you know, it would be cool to even find somebody who hasn't necessarily seen all the movies that I have and be able to sit down and show her my favorite movies and shows and see her first time reactions and then talk about them, like me having seen them many times and her having seen them for the first time, you know? Like, I've seen a lot of people have really interesting reactions to movies I never had. Like a lot of these movies that I never even thought were scary as a kid, I see movies now or people reacting to them and they're freaked out, like Predator. I've seen people do reaction to that movie and they're like so scared of the Predator and like it's so like all the tension filled scenes and it's like, wow, like I've always thought this movie's amazing, but I never personally thought it was that scary, but I could definitely see the tension there. So when I do see all these people who are afraid of it, or even the first Terminator movie, or even Terminator 2, which are movies I was literally watching when I was like 5 years old, you know? And I loved them back then, even despite the fact that they were really violent. You know, I just, it's always fascinating to me. So that's something that will be cool whenever I guess I hopefully meet the right person in my life. I'm not holding my breath, but we'll see at some point. Maybe it's gonna happen tomorrow. That'd be funny. And of course it won't, but that would be funny. Yeah, I'm not gonna comment on that, Geek Regan. But I have seen that I have seen that perception and perspective many times in the past, from different people who are critics of his content. I've always just made sure to share my own honest opinions about Dragon Ball, about Marvel, about DC, about everything I talk about because, I mean, obviously, I'm sure you guys have noticed, but I am sarcastic sometimes, from time to time. Maybe some of you haven't noticed because, like Josh keeps pointing out, I put zero inflection into my jokes, so a lot of times people think I'm just deadly serious when I'm not, uh, which, you know, is not intentional necessarily. It's just kind of how I am. I'm not like the person who has the most insane range of their normal voice, I guess, but I can do impressions and even do some vocals while occasionally playing the guitar. But yeah, regardless, I try to be honest with my opinions, even if I insert comedy and sarcasm in it along the way. And I just don't really see the point. I mean, I guess I see the point in being deceptive and lying to people in order to make money, but why would I want to do that? Why would I want to make money doing something that I thought was wrong? You know, like it's never really been something that, and like I said this in my last stream, I probably could have made way more money and been more successful on here if I just faked it the entire time and I just pretended I loved everything I was seeing in Dragon Ball Super and was always defending it and hype, hype, hype and all the stuff that a lot of these other channels do to make the audience like blindly fanboy over everything that they're seeing and love everything with their own eyes and etc. etc. But why would I do that? Like, you know, how could I live with myself if I did that? I couldn't, and I wouldn't want to. And you know, that's the thing. Like maybe I take YouTube too seriously, and it's just a business, Mike, and it's all about business, which I've heard so many times when people have fucked me over in the past on this very platform, stealing my topics, stealing my thumbnails, doing thing after thing after thing with me, and literally not just like, oh, they used something similar, they just straight up ripped me off, and then it's like, well, it's just business, Mike. You know, they're just trying to feed their family, they're trying to pay their bills, and it's like morality matters. You know, business ethics are a thing. I know that in this day and age, most people don't understand capitalism or the free market or, you know, economics in general and how to run a business and do fair practices and everything like that, best practices. But even when you run a business, when you're trying to make money, you still have to have something that's like your moral center and foundation. That's what I've always believed in. That even if I was doing YouTube for a job and as a living, like I'd rather just be honest and be moral and stick to my own principles than I would to just manipulate people in a malicious way in order to make money off of their emotional investment in something, which is part of the reason I hate the Laughingstock Media these days. You know, the reason why I hate a lot of what we see in these franchises, where that's exactly what they do. They literally just emotionally manipulate their audience and fanaticize them and force them to fight against each other, all for their own benefit, to make more money and to control the media and control the zeitgeist, basically, to control the narrative and the argument and the discussion. And it's not what I wanted to ever be, and it's part of why I quit YouTube, because I hated that that's kind of what YouTube was forcing me to be. Just from the other perspective, instead of positivity, it was negativity, where my negative videos about why this character is boring, like Jiren, or why I don't like this, or 10 things I don't like, even though I'd make 10 things I do like, those 10 things I don't like, those would get at least twice as many views as the 10 things I don't. I even made comments about this in some of my videos too. Like when I made the 10 things, or the 10 popular anime I don't like, and then immediately after that I made the 10 popular anime I do like. And in one of those I was like, I know that most of the time these videos get more views, and most of you probably won't even see my positive video, but let's find out. And then I upload them, and guess what? Exactly that happened, because that's always what happened with my channel. YouTube would push all of the negative things I would say to the forefront. And then people would tell me, well, Mike, your channel isn't doing well because, you know, you're too negative about Dragon Ball, or too negative about X, Y, and Z. But I wasn't. I would literally always try and balance it out with another video, except for when YouTube was promoting, well, even then I would try and promote videos that were impartial, or things like that, like, you know, my scientific breakdown videos, or what if, or theories, and etc., etc. Like, I would do all that, but YouTube would force me basically into pigeonholing me into a certain box where I would only upload things that would be negative, and then I would get that negative response. And I made a post about this recently too on my community tab. Let me actually share my screen real quick and go to that so I can give you an example about exactly what I'm talking about. So right over here, here we go. So like over here on my community tab, I just made this post the other day. I'm not sure if you saw it, but you know, everyone who liked it and commented, I appreciate it. But you know, I made a comment about how I'm not going to go back to discussing Dragon Ball full time, which I've already said on these streams, but YouTube doesn't promote them, or most people aren't really that interested in watching them, so they don't know. But like I said, reviewing Dragon Ball Super made... Maybe I'll clip this. So let me just read the whole thing. You're going to see a video in progress, even though I might not clip this. Hi everyone, my name is Mike, and in this video I'm going to tell you the truth about what I'm going to be doing moving forward, specifically in regard to Dragon Ball Super. And that is what I read, or what I said here in this community tab, and I'm going to read it off for you right now. And that is to say, I will never go back to discussing Dragon Ball full-time on this channel. Not when Super comes back, or ever again. I will not return or review the series episode by episode, or likely in general. I have made this very clear since my return, but since the majority of my audience is not even watching or seeing my live streams, it bears repeating. I got dyslexia. This is going to be hard for me to read off verbatim. Just bear with me, everyone. Reviewing Dragon Ball Super made me very unhappy as a person. I was forced by the platform to either discuss a franchise I no longer enjoyed, or have my channel die. And any time I was positive, these videos would be buried, whereas my negative videos would be promoted. Naturally, I'd be met with a massive number of comments on those videos saying I was a hater, I was never positive, and that I should end myself. Among many other things by this fandom who refused to ever watch the other content I produced. Naturally, well, I say refused, but really many of them never saw it because YouTube did not show it to them. Naturally, for someone who struggled with depression throughout their life, that sort of negativity wasn't a positive influence, and on a number of occasions, I came close to taking the commenter's advice. So I won't be going back to that ever again, nor should anyone expect me to, because my own health and well-being is more important than pleasing the algorithm or talking about a series I have zero interest in reviewing. If that's a deal breaker or something that leads you to unsubscribe, then you are free to do so. Everyone has free choice after all. You don't have to watch me. You can unsubscribe at any time. And, any views I've always appreciated, but, there's nothing holding you here if you don't want to watch my content. For anyone else, or for everyone else, stay tuned for more of my content to come. It may not go on forever, but at least it'll be what I want to do in the meantime, and we might even have some fun along the way. I'm trying to have fun, but I'm just terrible at reading things out loud. I'm like a freaking, illiterate second grader. Not really, but just reading things out loud can be more difficult, especially when the text is so small. Or maybe because I'm so freaking blind. But yeah, I meant that, by the way. That was a post I wanted to make for a very long time. There's a lot of things I've wanted to say on here that I just never really got the chance to do so because I was so honestly depressed at the time when I would make a lot of these videos that I just didn't have the strength to talk about them. Like there was so many times, and not to mention I was often discouraged by my friends who told me not to make those videos, who told me not to talk about what I was going through because, nobody wants to hear you complain, Mike. Nobody wants to hear you go through all these things that you're really going through that oftentimes are just horribly affecting you as a human being and making you miserable and making you not even want to be alive anymore on a day-to-day basis. Nobody wants to hear that, Mike. They just want to hear you talk about Dragon Ball, and that's it. And never make any of those videos. That's literally advice I'd get on a daily basis from people when I was on the edge and I needed someone to give me some real good advice, and I would be given advice like either quit or don't. Either do it or don't. Either make videos or don't. I appreciate that advice. That wasn't something I thought about ever at all. But yeah, that's part of whatever I was just talking about. Short-term memory is a bitch.
Hey, yo.
Let's see. Personally, I prefer your... Oh, wait, I already read that. But yeah, that being said, everyone, again, what I was talking about earlier with regard to huge jacked man returning as the Wolverine, I'm looking forward to it. I actually am. I hope it's going to be good. Marvel has not always... I mean, I was going to say Marvel has let me down before, and that's true. But, I'm here for that, and I'm hoping that things are going to keep going in a positive direction for my life, for entertainment, for the Laughingstock Media. Maybe it'll get some respect back. Maybe James Cameron will raise the bar again like he did in South Park and, with Avatar 2. I guess we'll see. But yeah. So JP Hunteraki says, honest opinions are always refreshing and in today's environment and world, both hard to find and brave. Well, I mean, I wouldn't refer to myself necessarily as brave for speaking the truth. I just view it as, not second nature, just, being the person I'm supposed to be, being the person we're all supposed to be, and just saying what we really should say the entire time, just being honest and transparent and, going out there and putting, our real thoughts into the world rather than putting something out just for the sole purpose of validation or trying to look cool on the internet, which I obviously never cared about. Otherwise, I would have lied all the time and just said Dragon Ball Super is the bestest thing ever, and I love YouTube and I love my life and I wish I was alive every day. Which I definitely don't know if I ever went that far, but yeah. And Darius, I'll take that advice, and if I don't, well, you won't see me on a future stream. That's a little dark now, isn't it? But I never really minded dark humor either. And that's the thing, Darius, too. Wolverine did die in his last movie, but who knows what canon that's a part of. Deadpool can rip him out of one canon or one part of the storyline if he wants to. It doesn't really matter. Not to mention that Logan may not have actually been a part of the same continuity as Days of Future Past. I honestly don't know. Even Dark Phoenix doesn't feel like it was a part of the same continuity because so much doesn't make any sense or line up. But then again, First Class was supposed to be like a what was it? It was supposed to be like a prequel originally to the X-Men movie. Well, actually, no. First Class, I think, was a reboot, and then Days of Future Past turned it into a prequel, even though it didn't line up or make any sense for it to be one. And then after that, they were like, by the way, Logan, all these things happened. Let's tell a story about it. And then we get Apocalypse, which had contradictory things in it, especially with regard to like Jean Grey. Um, like in Days of Future Past, they changed everything where Jean Grey wasn't going to turn into the Phoenix and do all these horrible things. And then in the next movie, they made it seem like in Apocalypse that she had the Phoenix power without any of like the crazy side effects or without it being some kind of cosmic force. And then in Dark Phoenix, they were like, oh, fuck that. By the way, it's a cosmic force. And she goes crazy and she kind of destroys herself, except not. So again, and then they changed the name of the school to the Jean Grey School for Gifted Children. And also, Jennifer Lawrence utters the most cringy line in X-Men history. Maybe they should call us the X-Women. And, yeah. That movie was horrible. But I did burst out hysterically laughing when Jean Grey forces Professor Xavier to walk up the stairs like a mannequin. I know I wasn't supposed to. I think I was supposed to be horrified, but yeah, I couldn't stop laughing when that happened. It was like when the bear attacked the doctor in New Mutants. I just burst out laughing hysterically because of how ridiculous it was. It was, oh God, that movie was so terrible. And yes, Geek Freak, and I do. I live in a state where that is fully acceptable and enjoyed by me and many other people. I enjoy it very much. I hope Ryan Reynolds and huge jacked man get to make the movie they want without Kevin Feige or the word I can't say on YouTube at Disney ruining it. To be fair, that Donald Duck cartoon was anti that word. So, you know. Not to mention that the okay, I won't even go there because then they'll totally have me cease to be. But yeah, I'm sure that some people got exactly what I was about to say. Even if I didn't utter a single syllable of it. And my cat really wants to come in. I think he's getting angry that I haven't given him his 15th dose of treats today. I guess I don't know. He loves to be fed. Yeah, I hear you, Penny. Does everyone want to see my cat? I guess I'll bring him on real quick. And yeah, New Mutants did get released. It was horrible. It was an abomination from the deepest, darkest depths of the ninth circle of hell. I don't know how they got it out of there, but the people who run Hollywood definitely have a very strong affiliation with hell. Beings that may dwell there, theoretically, hyperbolically. Hi. This stream is now a collab. Hi. Do you want to say hi to everyone? Yeah? Let's say hi to everyone. Come on. Say hi, everyone. He's like, Mike, why are you just sitting in here talking to yourself? Why are you such a weirdo? Can anyone even hear me? I'm guessing you could probably hear me. It's just probably really far away, right? Yeah, hi. definitely lifts, as you can tell. I feed him a very high protein diet. Yeah, I do really like dark humor, but yeah, the problem is that a lot of other people don't usually get it, or they get really offended by it. But that's a lot of humor in general. Like, we live in the no jokes allowed era. People, many years ago, people used to have this amazing talent and quality where they would actually be able to take jokes and they would be able to like laugh at themselves. Penny, can you like get your tail out of the way so that people can see my glorious face? But yeah, nowadays they can't do that anymore because they'd rather just like try and cancel you or just like scream on Twitter and the internet if you make a joke about certain demographics or certain insane things that happen in this country every single day now. And yeah, apparently the insanity has become the norm in our modern Western civilization. Maybe entirely by design. Was anyone able to hear anything I just said? Now, I live in a cold state, by the way, so I gotta pair my t-shirt with a blanket. Have you ever considered doing podcasts? Yeah, it's called Laughingstock Nation. It's with me and Josh from Dragon Ball Nation, and I considered and started doing it about a month ago, maybe. Yeah, whenever we reviewed Dragon Ball Super Superhero, that's that's a podcast. It's just that it's in video form, in live stream form, and so is Joe Rogan's and Bert Kreischer's and Tom Segura and all these other people that make podcasts that I watch from time to time. I mean, I guess I could just take the audio from this and turn it into a podcast, but I don't know. I don't know if I feel like bothering with that, to be honest. I'm not encouraging anyone else to do that either. Maybe in the future I will. I'm kind of annoyed that my stream quality is so low right now when I am streaming in a higher, whatever it is, a higher bit rate, but, you know, for some reason they're compressing it a lot. But yeah, with that being said, everyone, I probably am going to wrap this up very soon. We have hit the 2 hour mark. And House of the Dragon, I think, just came out a few minutes ago, so gonna get some frozen yogurt with very low carbs and mix it with some peanut butter and maybe mix it with some other things that will, boost my caloric and protein intake so that I could go toward my exercise regimen and I can gain more muscle mass. Although, to be honest, I haven't been as strict with my diet recently. I've been doing strict keto for a long time, but recently I've been doing more of a just seafood diet, I guess, where if I see food, I eat it. But nonetheless, I do want to continue to, get to that goal I'm reaching toward. I'm still not there. A lot of people have said, that they think I look fine already, but, I'm channeling my inner Patrick Bateman, not in the serial killer sense, but in the sense of, I could lose some more weight. I could still hit that low body fat percentage. I could still gain more muscle mass, lean muscle. And I'll do it eventually. Sometimes you gotta take a break, though. Sometimes you just gotta have fun and eat whatever you want for a period of time. And I do appreciate that, Darius. I certainly will. Does anyone have any other questions before we go? Pressing matters. Anything you've ever wanted to ask me that now you have the chance to before I peace out for the night? I gotta go hang out with my girl Mary Jane. Even though Black Cat's always been better. I'll go there. If I was Peter, I'd totally be all up on Black Cat instead of Mary Jane. I'd let her be up on me, too. It would have been interesting, I guess, to see whoever played Jyn Erso in Rogue One as Black Cat. I still don't know if she really was a good fit for that. Like Alexandra Daddario as Black Cat, I feel like I could totally buy. Like she's I think a good actress, and she definitely has the appearance for the role. I'll say that. I still don't understand what that's a reference to, Garda Trace. Are you gonna doo them out? Do you just want me to say that? Sylvester from Looney Tunes? I guess so, yeah. Um, Thucker and Thuckatash. Wait, that was a Roman Reigns quote, wasn't it? Oh, that promo was so bad. And yeah, it's definitely a good idea. Like, if you're doing a fitness goal, like, set little goals along the way, too. Don't always focus on that big goal. Like, for me, I would try and focus on going to sleep a certain weight or below a certain weight and waking up around or below a certain weight. So, like, for me, my biggest goal was to get below 200 pounds for the first time. And I finally was able to do that, a couple months ago. And I worked on it. It was like, tonight I want to go to sleep at like 265, and I want to wake up at maybe low or 260s. I want to wake up at 259 one day. I want to go to sleep at 259 one day. Like slowly whittling that weight down and getting into like better shape and condition and everything. Like setting those little goals along the way go a long distance in terms of helping you to stick to it and to keep going with that. I bought a scale, and people say, Mike, you shouldn't weigh yourself every day, but that's part of the things that kept me going, the things that gave me like a actual process and progress in which I was able to kind of see where I was going and how I was doing in that regard. And Darius, if that works for you, that's all good. But that's not really for me. I could, like, if I wanted to, I could swipe right on everyone I see on all the dating sites, and I would never have to have that issue. But that's not what I'm looking for. I'm one of the few people of my generation who actually wants to have a relationship with like substance and like something behind it other than a three-letter word. Yeah, I guess you could view it like power levels, Scouter. And Guard Trace, you're gonna have to explain that reference to me at some point. Yeah, I definitely understand that working from 8 to 5 and you feel really tired and stuff, but of course I'm trying to say things, my allergies won't leave me alone all of a sudden, but yeah, like losing weight is not easy. I'm not gonna be like, oh, it was easy for me to lose 100 pounds. It wasn't. Like it was something that I had to get into the habit and the mindset to do. I couldn't have any more of those days where it's like, I'll start tomorrow, or I'll get on my diet tomorrow, or I'll just have like, one bad meal today. I just had to go all in. I had to jump into it fully and It really, when it comes to losing weight, the vast majority of it is diet. It's not exercise. Like, exercise is helpful, but it really is eating certain foods and keeping your calories below a certain amount. That was the vast majority of it for me. There were periods of time where I barely worked out and I was still losing weight because of my diet. Because I did very low carbs, high protein, low calorie diet. And when I would work out, like, sure, I would go to the gym sometimes, but I was mostly doing like like exercises around my house with lighter weights. Just doing a lot of reps and focusing more on burning calories. And there was a period of time when I was heavier where I could barely even walk that far. Like, nowadays I can, like, basically run a mile. It's still not easy for me because I'm not like a crazy cardio addict. I'm not cardio bunny like a lot of the girls I see at the gym. But like, getting into better shape will make you lighter. It'll make you be able to move more and be able to do more. And the thing is, I still feel tired a lot, like, but you just have to do it anyway. That's another thing too with the exercise, because the other day I was exhausted, I didn't feel good, and I still walked a couple miles. I was still able to do it. There have been days where I have literally just like been so sick I can't do anything, and I still forced myself to do it to keep up and keep holding myself accountable and to keep going and trying to lose that weight and get in better shape. And it's not going to be walking for everyone. You burn more calories lifting weights than you do walking. For me, at let's round up and say 200 pounds, I burn maybe a 100 calories a mile. You could, like, walking for an hour, I could burn like 200 to 300 calories, right? But the thing is that sitting and pumping iron for an hour, I could burn even more than that, like doing deadlifts and squats and benching and, all the various exercises. Yesterday, um, was it yesterday? No, actually today. Fuck. The days blend together for me sometimes. But today I went to the gym and, I was just going to go there to walk. But sometimes when you're there, you just do other things. So I just lifted weights and then I walked. So, like, I was tired, so I couldn't walk as much as I normally could. But I still, lifted the weights. I did all these exercises. I just sometimes just do it, a little bit. Even, like, you don't have to work out for hours every day to get in shape. As long as you're working out a little bit, it's still good. It's still better than nothing. Set aside 15 minutes, lift weights, do a bunch of different exercises back to back in supersets. Today I did different types of curls. I did overhead presses, flies, benching, shrugs, things like that, like all back to back for like 10-15 minutes. And then I walked on the treadmill for a mile. I like ran for half of it, but I walked the other half. And sure, I was sweating and I was like breathing heavily and it wasn't comfortable, but it helped. And every little bit helps. But like I said before, the biggest thing is diet, because until you really start dieting, first off, learn how to make your own food. Everyone, if you can't cook, learn how to do it immediately, because used to eat out every single day, multiple meals a day. I would go and just get burgers and fries and pizza and just all this unhealthy food, Chinese food I eat like every day. Like, I would eat constantly other people's food that they would make, and then I would go and I finally taught myself how to cook and just make all of my own food. And it's night and day compared to, like, when you learn how to cook. It's like when you learn how to make a movie and you watch movies. When you learn how to cook and then you eat other people's food or you eat fast food, you realize just how drastically different it is than it was before for you, in terms of taste, in terms of quality. When you learn how to make your own chicken, when you go and eat chicken at a restaurant, you can immediately tell this isn't worth the price. this Chinese food, which is just some chicken that they put some breading around and some sauce and they fried it, is not worth anywhere near as much as they're charging. And I could make this myself at home for a fraction of the price. I can go to the store and I could get a big thing of chicken for like less than $10 and make meal after meal after meal for a week off of that chicken. I just cut it up, put it in the freezer, and I can make meal after meal, different variations, a chicken salad, chicken breast with like a side of cauliflower rice, or all these different types of things I could make and add seasoning onto it. So a lot of these foods that seem bland, put some seasoning on there, boom, amazing. Immediately it's amazing. Just cook it different ways, throw it on the grill, it's pretty quick, make it in the oven, get an air fryer. All these things are so much better, and you save so much money compared to when you go out and eat all the time because you're tired and you don't want to actually cook. I've saved so much money just this year alone making most of my meals because of the fact that I realized the value of a dollar. That's another thing too, when you're broke and you're pushing the edge, which I definitely was doing YouTube. I was struggling to pay my bills so many times doing YouTube. Where I have to transfer money around and all this other stuff. The thing is, like, you learn just how much money you're spending, especially like at the end of the year when you do taxes and you're self-employed and you start putting together every single thing that you spent money on the entire year and you add up everything, including all your groceries and all of the fast food. You literally will add up to spending thousands of dollars a year going out to eat if you do it every day. If you go out to eat once a day, and let's say that on average you're spending $10. That's $3,650 a year on going out and getting food, and you could spend maybe half of that if you just make all your own food. I mean, obviously get stuff on sale, like try and be frugal. And there's a difference between being cheap and frugal. A lot of people don't seem to know that. But like, watch your money too. Like, don't let yourself be a serf and just like live from check to check and never put any money away and spend all of it on going out and drinking and blowing all your money on bullshit. Don't do that. Like, don't waste your money. Not to mention going out and drinking at the bar. You could literally buy a bottle of whatever alcohol you're going out and drinking and make your own mixed drinks at home for a fraction of the price that you're going to go and hang out with your friends at some loud bar you could barely hear anyone talking, some girls that you're never going to end up with, and some strobe lights and shit that are going to give you a headache anyway. Like, why do that? Why waste your money and your time when you could be putting that away for real investments, or like a home or a car, or just like making it so that you're actually free and you're not living this production materialist life that everything is forced into these days, which is much of what our society is built on now, unfortunately. And that is not a condemnation of capitalism, because some people don't seem to understand that the two are not mutually inclusive. Um, but then again, like I said, we live in that type of, we live in a society, Batman. Even though he didn't actually say that in the Snyder Cut. They literally, I think, just recorded that line for the trailer. Yeah. My workouts riding to my car and driving to McDonald's. I mean, every once in a while, McDonald's wouldn't be too bad, but I just every time I go to my McDonald's, I get diarrhea. So that kind of tells you exactly what McDonald's is like for me these days. I used to love getting that breakfast, but my favorite fast food place will always be Taco Bell. Which I actually had today because I wasn't following my diet. But like I said, I am a human being. I'm going to fall. I'm going to fail. I'm going to fall short of the glory of God, but I am ultimately going to, I'm going to try and get back up and get at it. And when you go to the bar, you're paying for the environment more than you are the drinks. Yeah, hi, Penny. Thank you. What's that? Billy's in the well again? Wait, you're not Lassie. What are you doing? What's the matter? Okay, I'll feed you. Don't worry about it. By the way, I can talk to animals. I never explained this because, YouTube wouldn't promote my videos about that, but I have the gift of gab. Oh shit, now I lost it because I revealed it. Whatever. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've been to some clubs every now and then, and it's not really for me. It's not that enjoyable. But either way, everyone, thank you all for tuning in to my stream here tonight, in which I talked about, for a percentage of it, Deadpool 3 and the Return of Wolverine, and how I'm kind of looking forward to it. So, with that being said, I hope you all have a great night, rest of your week, and maybe next Sunday, Josh will return for another edition of Laughingstock Nation. What we'll talk about? I don't know. We never really know until we just kind of do it. But either way, thanks a lot for tuning in. You guys seem like you're excited for the new movie according to that poll. So I hope to see you.